Hello and welcome back. Today we look at part 2 of the UK's most disgraced celebrities, and you may see some of your suggestions in here, so keep an eye out. Now this video will consist of 2 parts, those who have been charged and the latter those who were accused but never charged, so we will look over the allegations and any updates. You'll notice that this time around there are a lot more politicians, so when I say celebrity I simply mean someone in the public eye. But let's get into our first case. 1. Ray Teret. Ray Teret was born on the 24th of October 1941 and had a standard upbringing. He worked in various jobs, but then got a job as a waiter at the Ritz Ballroom in Manchester. He always loved music, so working at the ballroom was perfect for him and for making connections. He decided to enter a singing contest in the early 1960s, and this contest was run by no other than Jimmy Savile. The two became very fast friends. He also became a DJ, a disc jockey, and they both lived in a flat together. He eventually became Savile's assistant DJ, sometimes his driver and general assistant. People said he would be Savile's shadow during that time. He joined various radio stations throughout the 1960s and 70s and would also make appearances as a DJ in clubs. He became known as Rat or Ugly Ray Teret. His ties to Jimmy Savile is what he used to prey on young girls in the clubs he worked in. His first charge was in 1999. Teret was found guilty of unlawful S with a 15-year-old girl. It took some time, but thankfully his life was dismantled when Operation U-Tree began and the Jimmy Savile scandal was known. On the 8th of November 2012, Teret was arrested at his home by Manchester police. The arrest was made as there were allegations of historic R. These allegations happened in the 60s and 70s against 3 women who were children at the time. 2 years later, in October 2014, he appeared in court. He was accused with more than 30 essays, 3 of those were R. The sad part is that these charges didn't come as a surprise to some people. He was known to have been very close friends with Savile in his early career, and they even lived together. It did call into question again, how did he and Savile get away with it, which was the standard question for most people charged in Operation U-Tree. At court it was revealed he would drive young girls to Savile's, and one allegation was of what him and Savile committed together. In the December, Teret was found guilty of 7 charges of R and 11 charges of indecent assault. He was acquitted of assisting Savile to R a victim, but he was found guilty of R-ing that same victim himself. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Teret passed away in 2021 at the age of 79. 2. Imran Khan. Before becoming an MP, Imran Khan worked for the United Nations. He also was a counter-terrorism expert. In 2019, Khan defeated a Labour MP and became the first Conservative MP for Wakefield in 89 years. As a Conservative MP, this is actually just insane. He was on a panel reviewing and advising on grooming gangs while he was actually being investigated for SA on children. In June 2021, Khan was charged on suspicion of a historical sexual offence on a 15-year-old boy. This happened in 2008. Khan denied the accusations. The Conservative Party suspended the whip from Khan pending the outcome of the prosecution. He wanted this all to be done behind closed doors. He stated that his own safety was at risk because he was an MP, and to name him would be a violation against his human rights. This was rejected. At his trial, he denied accusations of dragging a 15-year-old boy upstairs, forcing the boy to drink alcohol and watch adult content. The victim called police after Khan was elected to Parliament. The victim's older brother gave evidence that at the same party the MP had asked if he was a true Scotsman and lifted his kilt before lunging at him. Another witness at the trial said he woke to find Khan performing an act on him after a party in Pakistan in 2010, where the two had drunk whiskey and smoked. He was found guilty of essaying the 15-year-old boy. He was jailed for 18 months. After his conviction, he was also accused of offering S to a 16-year-old boy at a birthday party in 2015, and offering to take the youth to a hotel to use substances and hire a worker. Khan was expelled from the Conservative Party. He appealed against his conviction and sentence, but the appeal was dismissed. Khan was released from prison on the 21st of February 2023, having served just half of his 18-month sentence. 3. Charlie Elphicke. Charlie Elphicke was a Conservative MP. He stood down in 1998. He was a deputy chairman of the Cities of London and Westminster Conservative Association from 2002 to 2006. In 2021, he won as the MP for Dover. But let's go back to 2017. The Conservative Party suspended him after serious allegations. With his wife's full support, he denied any wrongdoing. In March 2018, he was told that he was accused of offences against 2 members of his staff. He said in response, "I am completely confident I will be able to prove my innocence." It then came to light that an allegation of R was made against him in 2017 and the police had not informed him of this for 4 to 5 months. The Sunday Times reported on these allegations and he sued them in order to shut the whole story down. On the 22nd of July 2019, the Crown Prosecution Service announced that they had charged him with 3 counts of SA relating to 2 women. One charge was relating to an incident in 2007 and the other 2 in 2016. He denied all charges. The Conservative Party again withdrew his whip later that day and he was given bail until June 2020 when he needed to reappear in court. In court it was told that he groped one of the women and chased her around his house. He sang "I'm a Naughty Tory." In July 2020 he was found guilty. He was handed a 2-year sentence. He appealed but this was denied. He served 1 year in Leyhill prison and was released in September 2021. He was ordered to pay $35,000. He claimed to be unable to pay, stating, "I have no job, I have no career, I am long-term unemployed," and that he was living in a rented 1-bedroom flat and claiming universal credit. After he lost his appeal, his wife stopped the support and left him, but interestingly, his wife, Natalie, and 4 other MPs were found to have breached their code of conduct by the Common Select Committee on Standards for improperly trying to influence a judge. They were accused of writing a letter to Mrs. Justice Whipple not to disclose character statements at his trial. His ex-wife Natalie was a Conservative until this year when she defected to Labour. 4. Freddie Emery-Wallis. Wallis was the Lord Mayor of Portsmouth. He was the leader of the County Council for more than 20 years and was highly respected. He was appointed the Lord Mayor of Portsmouth in 1969 and then was elected to Hampshire County Council in 1973 and became the leader of authority just a few years later. He served as the Deputy Lord Lieutenant of Hampshire and in 1999 was made a CBE in the Queen's Birthday Honours. In 2001, he was convicted of indecent assault against 2 boys in the 1960s and 70s. The barrister said, for 40 years he had worked for his fellow citizens, both within the city of Portsmouth and more recently throughout Hampshire. He will be remembered not for his good works but for these offences. He quit his role in 2000, but protested his innocence, telling fellow councillors, "I am determined to do all I can to ensure that these allegations do not tarnish my own reputation." In court, he was actually given credit by the judge, which I just can't, but the judge said he otherwise was an excellent character. As a consequence, he was stripped of his CBE and was sentenced to 9 months. In 2008, allegations of indecent assault against a girl were dropped due to lack of evidence. He passed away in 2017. 5. Patrick Rock. Patrick Rock tried to win a seat as a Conservative MP on 3 separate occasions, in 1979, 1984 and in 1990. After these failed attempts, he became an advisor to various ministers during the 1990s, and in 2011, David Cameron brought him into his government by appointing him as his 10 Downing Street Deputy Director of Policy. In March 2014, it was discovered that he had been arrested on suspicion of an offence relating to CP. In June 2014, he was charged with 3 counts of making an indecent photograph. He was also charged with possession of 59 images. In December 2014, he pleaded not guilty to 6 charges of making indecent photographs and 1 charge of possessing 56 indecent images. He was granted bail. In court, he admitted to downloading 20 images but denied that they were indecent. On the 1st of June 2016, he was found guilty of possessing and downloading indecent images. He was acquitted of 3 charges, and the jury was unable to reach a verdict on all 12 charges. He was given a 2-year conditional discharge, the judge saying that his punishment for the offence was his very public humiliation, not spending even 1 night in prison. 6. Graham Rix. Graham Rix was a footballer. He played for Arsenal and then went on to play in France. He then played in Scotland and retired as a player in 1993. He had a few managerial spells, one being at Portsmouth between 2001 and 2002. But in February 2013, he was appointed head coach of AFC Portchester. He left the club in August 2017, and in August 2022 he took over as manager of Wessex Football League side Fareham Town. Now usually I'd say then he had allegations made against him and was charged, but actually it wasn't at this point. He was actually convicted in 1999 in between his coaching and managerial career. He was charged with having S with a 15-year-old girl and sentenced to 12 months in prison. He served 6 months. He was placed on the registry for 10 years and banned by the FA from working with youth players under the age of 16. He said that he thought she was of age. On his release from prison, he immediately returned to his old job. He claimed that there was mitigating circumstances in the case, saying, "I know the true story that I've never ever said." In 2018, Rix, along with assistant manager Gwen Williams, were accused of racism and physical assault by several Chelsea trainees who were of school age at the time. It said that Rix had thrown a cup of hot coffee in the face of one player. Both denied the allegations. In February 2022, Chelsea settled a High Court case brought by 4 former youth team players over historical abuse by Williams and his fellow coach Rix in the 1990s. Each player received a 6-figure sum. A safeguarding panel decision in 2019 concluded Rix may pose a risk of harm to children in terms of emotional abuse. He was let go by Fareham this year. 7. Nazir Ahmed. Ahmed began his political career as a local Labour Party councillor. He became the chair of South Yorkshire Labour Party in 1993 and held this position until 2000. He was created a life peer, becoming Baron Ahmed. Normally life peers, you inherit this, but for him, the Prime Minister recommended that it was created for him to the Queen. But this meant he could also sit in the House of Lords and vote. In 2019, he was accused of using his position in the House of Lords to have S with vulnerable women. One of those women, Tahira Zaman, explained how the pair went on to have an intimate relationship after she had approached him for help with a personal matter in February 2017. A second woman also alleged that when she asked him for help, he suggested she should spend the night at his London home, which she refused as she interpreted this as a proposition for S. He denied acting inappropriately. In March 2019, he was charged with 2 offences of attempted R and 1 offence of indecent assault between 1971 and 1974. The victims were a boy and a girl, and at the time of the crime were under the age of 13. At the time of the crime, Ahmed himself was between 14 and 17 years old. He appeared at court with his 2 brothers who were also accused. On the 19th of March 2019, they were all granted bail. On the 16th of April, his eldest brother was charged with 4 counts of indecent assault against a boy under the age of 8. Another older brother was charged with 2 counts of indecent assault against a boy under 11. On the 5th of January 2022, Ahmed was found guilty of attempted R of a girl and of a serious SA upon a boy. He was sentenced to 5 years and 6 months in prison. An appeal against the sentence was lodged, and in March 2023, the Court of Appeal ruled that the 3.5-year sentence imposed for the charge of buggery was excessive, as he was still a child himself when the offence was committed, and that the trial judge should have taken this into account when sentencing. The sentences of 2 years for the attempted R offences were unchanged, resulting in the total sentence being reduced from 5.5 years to 2.5 years. He was expelled from the House of Lords, but still holds his life peer title. 8. Mark Page. Page was a radio presenter for the BBC Radio Cleveland in 1975. He then hosted the breakfast show on Radio Tees from 1978 to 1983. When Pat Sharp left Radio 1 in 1983, Page was offered the 6 to 8 am slot on weekend mornings and titled the show Me Mark Page. He left the BBC and began doing independent radio shows. Page was a Middlesbrough FC stadium announcer for 20 years. In 2021, it was announced that Page would go on trial for attempting to incite or cause a girl to engage in activity and arranging or facilitating exploitations of children in the Philippines. Page denied the allegations. He was actually arrested after Facebook raised concerns about some of his messages. Police then searched his house and carried out checks on his devices and the money transfers to different accounts. He said he travelled to the Philippines for business or charity trips. He also said that his devices had been hacked. He used a webcam to contact children aged between 12 and 13 and travelled to the Philippines to essay them in 2016 and 2019. He was originally sentenced to 12 years in prison, but this was later raised to 18 years by 3 Court of Appeal judges who said the original term was lenient. 9. Jonathan King. King was heavily involved in the music industry. He was a writer, singer and producer. His first big success was when he wrote and sung Everybody's Gone to the Moon in 1965. He discovered and named the rock band Genesis in 1967 and produced their first album. He founded his own label UK Records in 1972. Between 1971 and 1972 he produced 6 top 30 singles in the UK. In 1991 he produced the Brit Awards, and in 1997 he selected and produced the winning British entry for the Eurovision Song Contest, Love Shine a Light by Katrina and the Waves. But this all came crashing down. The National Crime Intelligence Agency were investigating him in 2000, when a man said he was abused by King when he was a child. The man had originally approached publicist Max Clifford, himself later jailed in 2014, which I covered in part 1. Clifford told him that he should go to the police. King was arrested in November 2000 and bailed on $150,000, $50,000 of which was put up by Simon Cowell. He was arrested again in 2001 as 27 men told the police that King had essayed them during the period of 1969 and 1989. Police searched his home and found pictures of teenagers. King admitted having approached thousands of people with questionnaires about youth interests, doing market research. The questionnaires asked the people to list topics according to importance, including music, sport, friends and family. The prosecution claimed that boys who listed sex high in their list of priorities were then targeted by King. In 2001 he was convicted of 4 counts of indecent assault, 1 of buggery and 1 of attempted buggery, committed between 1983 and 1987 against 5 boys aged 14 and 15. He then stood at a second trial and he was found not guilty. King said he never knew the victim. In court, the victim said he may have been 16 or older at the time. There were actually 3 other trials, but they were abandoned. King claimed, among other things, that the lack of statute of limitations in the UK for S offences meant he had been unable to defend himself adequately because of the many years that had passed. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison and was placed on the register. He was also prohibited from working with children. He was released on parole in March 2005 and was asked by a newspaper in 2012 if he believed he had anything to apologise for. He responded, "The only apology I have is to say that I was good at seduction. I was good at making myself seem attractive when I wasn't very attractive at all." 10. Jan Latham-Koenig began his career as a concert conductor with the BBC in 1981. He made his debut with the opera Macbeth at the Vienna State Opera in 1988 and was appointed its permanent guest conductor in 1991. Since August 2011, he has been artistic director of the Novaya Opera in Moscow. He was appointed Officer of the Order of the British Empire, OBE, in the 2020 birthday honours for services to music in the UK and Russia. He was arrested on the 10th of January 2024 at Victoria Station and charged with arranging or facilitating an offence and communication with a child he had initially contacted on a gay dating app. He pleaded guilty to 2 of the 3 charges in February 2024. At his trial in March of this year, it was told he arranged to meet up with someone he thought was a teenager, but it was actually an undercover police officer. He was granted bail. He admitted attempting to engage in communication with a child for the purpose of gratification between the 9th of December and the 11th of January. He entered a no plea to a third charge of attempting to meet a person under the age of 16 and engage in activity during or after the meeting. It was told that he initially started chatting with an undercover officer who was posing as a child through a dating app before progressing to WhatsApp. The officer was working as part of an investigation by detectives from the Met Police Specialist Crime Command. On the 28th of May 2024, he was given a suspended prison sentence. 11. Chris Langham. He was an actor, writer and comedian. His most prominent role is playing the cabinet minister in Hugh Abbott in the BBC sitcom The Thick of It. He was also a presenter, Roy Mallard, in People Like Us, first on BBC Radio 4. He is also known for various roles in television, like Not the 9 o'clock News. In 2006, he won a BAFTA award for The Thick of It. On the 29th of November 2005, he was arrested by Kent Police in connection with Operation Oar, a British police operation into credit card customers paying to access indecent images of children on the internet. His lawyer read a statement out in which he said that he was innocent and pointed out that he had not been charged. On the 11th of May 2006, he was charged with 15 counts of downloading images of children during July and August 2007. Part of his defence to these charges in court was that they were research on a Peeping Tom character, Pedro, for a television comedy. He also said in court that he was the victim of child SA and this caused him to look for images. Langham had paid with his credit card for access to a site entitled European Lolita Sex in 1999. On the evening that the public was made aware of the scope of Operation Oar, Langham had contacted police to report his concern about spam emails with links to sites which he said he was receiving. The prosecution said that he had contacted police because he had panicked and wanted to give the impression of being a good citizen. He was also accused of having with an underage girl in upmarket hotels, in his West End dressing room, his car and his home. The victim said this started when she was 14 years old. He denied the charges and claimed he only had with her when she was 18. He was found not guilty of 6 counts of indecent assault and 2 counts of buggery between January 1996 and April 2000, but he was convicted on charges of downloading child images and videos. He was sentenced to 10 months in prison and was placed on the register for 10 years. He was released on the 14th of November 2007 after his sentence was reduced to 6 months on appeal. In 2012, he appeared in Richard John Taylor's drama film Acceptance. 12. Tom Binns. Binns is a comedian and radio host. He was nominated and won various comedy awards throughout his career. He appeared on different television shows and he is a writer. He's probably most well known for the BBC One's Hospital People, part of the BBC's comedy Playhouse, in which he plays the 5 lead characters. In 2022, he went to court and admitted 5 counts of making and 1 of possessing indecent images of children. He was found to possess over 35,000 images of children, including 104 Category A, 411 Category B, and 34,000 Category C. He said he has no interest in children and had been under the influence of an overdose of prescription drugs for ADHD, which induced obsessive-compulsive disorder. He downloaded and viewed these images between March and November 2020, just after the first lockdown. He said while under the influence, he downloaded and deleted a very large amount of adult images over a short period of time. Within those downloads, it appears there were some of children, which I had not sought out nor wanted. I have no interest in children. I have taken and passed a polygraph stating I have no interest in children. I am bitterly upset at the hurt this has caused my family, for which I will take full responsibility. I will take my punishment for this and hope that my family are not further harmed by my actions. The National Crime Agency said he deliberately collected a huge number of indecent images. They said they received information that the user of his email had uploaded multiple Category C images. A warrant was executed at his home and he was arrested. 39 devices were seized, including a tablet, MacBook Pro and a MacBook. They said during the investigation it was established that a third party of Mr. Bin's partner had been asked to sell several devices on behalf of him. Those devices were also checked. The devices included 2 hard drives and were found to store thousands of images. He was given a 15-month suspended sentence and put on the register for 10 years. So now this is part 2 of this video, and I'm going to go over cases where the person wasn't actually charged, whether it was because it was settled outside of court, the person had already passed, or any other reasons. I will just go through the timelines from the allegations to the present day and any updates. We start off with Peter Morrison. Morrison was first elected to the House of Commons in February 1974 for Chester. He was one of the first backbenched MPs to urge Margaret Thatcher to stand for party leadership in 1975. In 1986 he became Deputy Conservative Party Chairman, and in 1990 he became the Parliamentary Private Secretary to the Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher. He was the leader of her campaign team in the Conservative leadership election in the same year, and he was knighted by the Queen in February 1991. There were many rumours and allegations and suggestions throughout his career. The Guardian did their own investigation. It was said that he was gay and liked schoolboys. He was actually asked by the whips about these suggestions, but he always denied it. The rumours were around when he was the private secretary to Margaret Thatcher, and it wasn't brought up to her, and she didn't bring them up either. It's said that certain positions he wanted to be in, the Conservatives shelved this, as it would be too risky with these rumours swirling. In 2012, he was implicated in the North Wales child scandal. This scandal was between 1974 and 1990. Up to 650 children from 40 children's homes were abused. Rod Richards, who is the ex-leader of the Welsh Conservatives, said that him and another high-profile Conservative MP would visit their care homes for no real apparent reason. The journalist Nick Davies reported in The Guardian that Morrison received a caution for cottaging with underage boys in public lavatories. Another Conservative MP, Edwina Curry, stated that Morrison regularly had sex with 16-year-old boys at a time when the legal age of consent for same-sex relations was 21. Morrison's successor for Chester said that he was told by multiple people that Morrison was a disgusting P and a monster. In January 2015, the Daily Telegraph reported allegations that Morrison had AR'd a 14-year-old boy at Elm Guest House in London. The victim said he was walking in the village of Harting in West Sussex in 1982, when Morrison gave him some money and later lured him into London. In 2019, Morrison was investigated by the Independent Inquiry into Child SA, and in Feb 2020, the Independent Inquiry claimed senior officials within the Conservative Party knew about allegations concerning Morrison for years but did not pass them on to the police. Morrison passed away in 1995. Now we move on to Prince Andrew. We know who he is and the ins and outs, so let's go through the allegations and the backstory. In 1999, he is introduced to Epstein through his friend Ghislaine Maxwell. They clearly become close as they're spotted in 2000 at Donald Trump's club in Florida. Epstein and Maxwell attend a party at Windsor Castle hosted by the Queen, and Prince Andrew throws a shooting party for Maxwell the following weekend. The following year is when Virginia Jeffrey alleges Andrew essayed her at Maxwell's home in London, and also twice more at Epstein's New York home and on his private island in the Caribbean when she was 17. In 2008, Epstein pleaded guilty and was convicted. for soliciting children for work. He was convicted of only 2 crimes as part of a controversial plea deal and served almost 13 months in custody, but with extensive work release. Andrew visited Epstein in New York and they were seen walking through Central Park together. This was put across the papers, and Sarah Ferguson, Andrew's ex-wife, also admitted that Epstein had paid off some of her debts. It was actually then in 2015 where the first allegations came for Prince Andrew's. The allegation was that Andrew had S with Virginia. It emerged in court documents related to Epstein. They say she was forced to have S with him when she was 17, which is under the age of consent in Florida law. Buckingham Palace denied the allegations. Following this, Epstein is arrested and is found in his cell in 2019. That same year, Prince Andrew steps back from public duties and he did a BBC TV interview where honestly he makes himself look even more guilty. In 2022, a New York judge rejects Prince Andrew's attempts to throw out an SA civil lawsuit brought against him by Virginia. Virginia's lawyer insists that she would be unlikely to accept a purely financial settlement to end her SA civil lawsuit against Prince Andrew. Her lawyer says that although she does not have a firm idea of what she wants, it is important that any resolution happens in a way that vindicates her and vindicates the other victims. Andrew denied having any link into the criminal activity of Epstein. Prince Andrew's lawyers reiterate their previously unsuccessful claim that Virginia's 2009 settlement with Epstein shields Andrew from litigation. He was supposed to appear in court under oath, but he reached a settlement in principle with Virginia in which he agrees to make a substantial donation to charity and accepts that Virginia was a victim. The settlement that Prince Andrew had to pay is believed to be anywhere between $12 to $16 million, since he has kept a very low profile and remains in the shadows at royal ceremonies and events. There are still questions as to why allegations aren't also being investigated by the Met Police. Next is Clement Freud. Freud had many different career paths. He was coined as the first celebrity chef. He wrote children's books, he was a sports journalist, and went on to win awards as a food and drinks writer. He was also a politician. He became a Liberal Member of Parliament. He was also on the radio and best known as a panellist on a long-running Radio 4 show, Just a Minute. He passed away at his home on the 15th of April 2009. Lots of people attended his funeral. Bono, Richard Curtis, Stephen Fry, and many other celebrities, as well as politicians, the then Prime Minister Gordon Brown and the Chancellor George Osborne. In 2016, ITV released a documentary alleging that Freud had engaged in child SA between the 1940s and the 1970s. It claimed that he had preyed upon them when they were still children and into young adulthood. Sylvia Woosley contacted the same team that exposed Jimmy Savile and told them she had been SA'd for many years by Freud, from the age of 10 in the 1950s to when she left his home aged 19. The second woman said that he had groomed her from the age of 11, SA'd her at 14 and R'd her at 18, by which time he had become a politician. Freud's widow, Jill, issued an apology to both women. She accepted the claims and issued a statement of sympathy for his victims. A third victim, Vicky Hayes, alleged that she was R'd by Freud when she was aged 17. It also emerged that Operation Yewtree had been passed Freud's name in 2012 when 2 victims made accusations to the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. Now on to Cyril Smith. Cyril Smith served as a Labour councillor from 1950 and became mayor of Rochdale in 1966. He switched parties and was appointed the Liberal chief whip in June 1975. In 1979, a local magazine, the Rochdale Alternative Press, alleged that in the 1960s, Smith had spanked and SA'd teenage boys in a hostel he co-founded. The matter was investigated by the police, but Smith was not prosecuted. He passed away in 2010. Smith never publicly denied the accusations or took legal action in response to those accusations. After he passed away, the allegations were denied by his family. The press office of the leader of the Liberal Party, David Still, commented, "All he seems to have done is spanked a few bare bottoms." The Labour MP for Rochdale, Smith's former seat, called for an inquiry into alleged acts of SA by Smith. Alan Neal was a Rosendale councillor, and he alleged that at the age of 11 in 1964, during Smith's membership of the Labour Party, he was assaulted by Smith at a hostel for boys. Neal said, "I'm speaking now because someone has taken a right decision to raise the issue with the authorities." He added that he told police about the incident in 1968 when he left the school, but that when he did so, everyone made the same comment, that the person in question was a very important, powerful man. Another victim came forward and said he had a similar experience at a Rochdale care home in the 1960s. On the 21st of November 2012, the Manchester Police announced it would investigate allegations that Smith had SA'd boys at a hostel in Rochdale after 1974, and Lancashire Police would investigate claims dating from before 1974. In 2012, the Crown Prosecution Service said that Smith should have been charged more than 40 years earlier. In a statement, they said Smith had committed physical and SA. Smith was never charged, although investigations were undertaken in 1970, 1998 and 1999. Police had claimed that the allegations against Smith were lost. A former Special Branch officer, Tony Robinson, came out and said actually they were seized by the MI5. In 2013, it was reported that police were investigating claims that Smith SA'd boys at a London guest house. The Met Police said, "We can confirm Cyril Smith visited the house. A 16-year-old boy was SA'd by Smith, allegedly." MP Simon Danczak said he was convinced that there was a network or a ring operating in the House of Commons who helped to protect Smith. It was found that there had been 144 complaints against him and that attempts to prosecute him had always been blocked. The police were also investigating allegations that there was a ring that had been operating for a long time in Rochdale. There were 21 suspects, 14 had been identified, and that included Cyril Smith. In July 2014, Rochdale Council's inquiry into child SA linked to Smith at Knollview Residential School was halted at the request of the police. The police asked the authority to suspend their inquiry while detectives investigated claims of an institutional cover-up. In 2014, it was reported that Smith had actually put pressure on the BBC in 1976 by asking the corporation not to investigate the private lives of certain MPs. It was reported that in 1970 a police detective investigating Smith presented evidence to his superior, but no action was taken. In 2015, Cabinet Office papers were released confirming that Prime Minister at the time Margaret Thatcher was made aware of allegations against Smith before he was knighted in 1988, although she gave him the benefit of doubt because the Director of Public Prosecutions had previously investigated him and had decided not to prosecute him due to a lack of evidence. On the BBC, an investigation on Newsnight showed that Smith had actually been arrested in the early 1980s in relation to his participation in a ring, but a high-level cover-up reportedly led to him being released within hours. The evidence destroyed and the investigating officers prevented from discussing the matter under the Official Secrets Act. A retired police officer came forward stating that he was threatened with the Official Secrets Act after he found Smith in the home of a known S offender with 2 drunk teenage boys and a police sergeant in civilian clothes. The retired officer said that he was summoned to a meeting with a senior officer at Stockport Police Station and told in no uncertain terms not to say anything about it. This took place in 1988. In 2012, the Crown Prosecution Service admitted that Smith should have been charged during his lifetime. The Greater Manchester Police Assistant, Steve Hayward, said there were overwhelming evidence that young boys were SA'd by Smith. A total of 144 complaints against Smith from victims as young as 8 years of age have been received by the police. And that concludes our video today. In the last 4 cases of Peter Morrison, Prince Andrew, Clement Freud and Cyril Smith, they are allegations as they were not charged. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.